Hey everyone, it is your host Damien here from Hybrid Heroes, and this is the HYROX Heroes podcast, where we talk everything that you need to know when it comes to getting ready for your next HYROX race. Excited to have you here, and let's get into the episode. We're going to be talking about HYROX training. Now, what inspired me to do today's podcast topic is I had a lot of people reaching out on our training app, and we have HYROX programs there, but people have been requesting, and I've started to build out a specific program to help people in between races, right? So we're talking, you've just finished the race and now you're going to do another HYROX, which could be 4 weeks away, could be 6 weeks away. But now we're in between races, and what does that training look like? So this sparked the question, but I want to talk about it because a lot of people, they get involved with HYROX, they get on the bandwagon, and as soon as you get your first hit, your first taste of your first HYROX, you want to go again. And here in Australia, we have HYROXs all around us in different states. And as we know in Europe as well, HYROX is not too far away. In the States, it is everywhere, and it's growing more. There's more events, so there's more opportunities to do more HYROX. Now, when we're looking at training, and that's what today's conversation is going to be around, how do we make those improvements? Because if you've only got 6 weeks from race to race, so you got to recover from one race, start training, taper, and then, get ready for your next race. What does that look like? And believe it or not, this is a mistake I see. The elites, right? So anyone who's at the top of the field, the elites and the beginners make the exact same mistake. So I'm going to break it down pretty simply today, just to give us really good context overview. It's going to definitely help you understand how you need to approach your training. You're going to understand the mistake people make. And then you're going to understand as well, if you really want to get good at the sport of HYROX and you really want to train hard and get a great result, I'm going to show you how you need to approach it as well. All right. So it's going to be a really great conversation. You're going to get a lot from this. And, our goal here is just to really deliver great fitness knowledge that applies to HYROX in the most simplest way form. So I'm going to, keep it nice and simple today. And, that's all it is. It's like that's already a lesson there that we're learning with HYROX and the more and more I get in the HYROX, it's just people are just overcomplicating it. It is actually such a simple system, right? Yes, there's different areas to work on. You got strength, you got running, you got to tie it all together, but we just, got to look at it in its simplest form. So that's what we're going to do here today when it comes to training cycles, training blocks, right? And how to prepare best for your HYROX depending on your timeline. Okay, so let's go back to, let's call it a perfect build-up, okay? So if you had 12 months to train for a HYROX, right? What would you be doing 12 months out that you'd do very different? Let's call it 1 month out, right? So in this phase, we call it just base building, right? You could imagine if you're 12 months out from HYROX, there should be no extreme intensity. You should not be doing HYROX simulations. You should not be replicating the intensity and the pace of HYROX. Because imagine trying to, sustain that, number one, for 12 months, right? But also the goal is you're starting training. So there's no point trying to perform like you're already at the end or like you're already doing HYROX. You got to start to build, right? We're in a build phase. So we've got to start to get that foundation right. And over time, we're going to get fitter and stronger. So we're trying to increase your potential. We're not trying to take what you got now and perform with it. We're trying to build new performance, new strength into your body, right? So we can probably all agree, well, yes, that makes a lot of sense when we're 12 months out. Now, when it comes to a structure point of view, when we look at programming or anything like that, I would call that build phase anywhere from, 12 months out. Let's just say it could, you can do this 4 years out. Think of the Olympics, you train 4 years, but we don't need to go that extreme. 12 months is such a long time frame. So 12 to 6 months, right, out from your HYROX. So 12 to 6 months out from your event is a really good time frame to be in that build phase, right? So again, you could be 9 months out. You're going to be starting off in a build phase. So what are we building? We're going to be building the two things that are needed in this fitness pyramid. You need strength and you need endurance, right? Without those two things, right, you cannot build to a peak of fitness. And we call that peak, the tip of that pyramid is going to be your HYROX event, where those two foundational pillars need to intersect, and that is, you displaying your ability, to exert and display fitness, right? So we need those two things. So what does that look like? Again, in the simplest form, you got to build endurance. So does that mean 100-meter track sprints? Or does that mean long, slow, 60-minute plus runs? Which one's going to build endurance? Yes, the long, slow run. So we'll build the endurance, right? Now, when we're doing strength training, should we be doing 20-minute AMRAPs of high-intensity circuit training where we've got kettlebell swings and power cleans and all these things? Or should we do just strength training like bodybuilding movements? Should we just be doing bench press and leg press, right? And, dumbbell rows, things that are just build what we call like absolute strength. Build, put the power in that and strengthen that muscle, right? And yes, that is the one I'm referring to that we should be doing, right? We don't want to display it in these high intense situations. We want to display it, we call it absolute strength, which is, again, the foundation of strength. So if you don't have an ability to squat, a decent amount of weight for your body size, and you can't, let's say do a bench press, let's call it more than 50% of your body weight, then that's something that really needs to be worked on in order then to be able to display strength needed for HYROX. So we understand these are the two foundations. So that's why we train these things so far out. Now, the great thing is when you're in this build phase, intensity doesn't need to be high. You don't need to do a lot of training volume. You just need to do, 4 sessions a week for most people in that sort of bracket, 4 to 5 sessions, depending on your fitness ability, is going to be more than enough. It's very sustainable, right? It's very achievable, and it's going to then line you up for the next phase, right? So the next phase of training that we program and we put people through and how we should think about our training is what I call like the 6 months out to the 3 months out from your event, right? So from 6 months all the way to 12 weeks out, so in between that phase. Now, this is where we take that base building that we've built all of this now endurance and we've built this strength. Now what we're going to do, because as now we want to start to think about the race in mind, is we got to build volume and capacity. So now what we've got to do is we've got to go from a very, sustainable, achievable sort of structure as far as how many times a week we're training. Now we've got to start to progressively overload. So now we got to start to not necessarily pick up the intensity in the training sessions, but we need to start doing more. We need to now making sure that the body is, starting to build up to the time domain. So HYROX for most of us is, let's call it 60 minutes to 90 minutes, right? Even longer. So now we've got to start to build that kind of volume and capacity in some of our training sessions. So if we've only been running for 60 minutes, we've got to start to build that out to 90 minutes or your, estimated time finish. So we start to now teach the body how to go the distance. This is also where our strength training, we now will start to, do some more sets. We will add some more exercises because now we're starting to really push the body a little bit harder, requiring it now to perform a little bit better. And that volume is going to continue to help us be strong, be explosive, start to, increase intensity in those ways now, where now it's not a very slow and gradual. Now it's a little bit more performance-based. We now want to be hitting our working sets. We now want to be, sustaining high levels of output, and this volume and capacity is now going to go into our training. In this 6 to 3 months out as well, this is where typically we will start to put HYROX workouts, into the program, very specific HYROX workouts, but not starting at that end point, starting at the base point. So if you're estimated to go, let's call it 90 minutes long, right? We're not going to put you into a 90-minute workout straight away. And for a lot of us, right, especially first timers, are like, I can't do this right now, especially 6 months out, right? So we got to take a snapshot. So I like to, break it into 4s. So, we could go, okay, we're going to do, 20 minutes of work, right? For 4 weeks, then we're going to increase that to 40 minutes, then we're going to increase it to 60, then we're going to increase it, to 80. So now 20, and see how we stack on and we build that way. So in this, volume and capacity phase that we're building, we're increasing over time, not all at once. So again, that's the principle we got to look at but now we got to go, okay, things are moving in a direction that is leading towards HYROX. All right. Now, in whichever way, shape, form, all that is. So it comes to the idea. It's like you got to be able to you got to be able to crawl before you can walk. You got to be able to walk before you can jog. Got to be able to jog before you can run. Right. So if you can't do 60 minutes of HYROX training right now, right, and you're about 6 months out, don't try to do 60 minutes. Go to what you can do. Go, I can do 20 minutes. Okay, cool. I'm going to do a 20-minute workout, right? And then, after, 2 to 4 weeks, I'm going to now do 30-minute workouts. See, and that's how we're going to keep pushing it ahead. And you'll find that you will start to make a lot of progress in that. But we have to come out of that phase, right? And this is the last phase. I call it about 12 weeks out, right? 12 weeks or 3 months is what we find is the optimal time of a given sort of structure to get really good adaptation. So any shorter than that, we don't fully adapt to the training program, right? It means we don't need to change things because we can still adapt. But do we need to go a lot longer? No, it's probably then time to change up the structure. So in that last 3 months now, 12 weeks, this is now where we go, okay, intensity needs to increase. Think about we're building now to that peak of HYROX. Intensity needs to increase. The performance needs to be shown and needs to be repeated. We need to now display efforts that's are very similar to the HYROX race, right? Not completely, right? So I don't ever think we need to fully go 100% in our training, because training should always, be repeatable, it should be measurable, and we don't need to replicate the actual race until the actual race day, right? So we want to do all that in our training. And the thing is too, like, even if you try to replicate a race, just to touch on that point, well, if you think about a race, like typically you taper, you load up differently, and then you do that. So when we're training, we're not taking all those factors in. I see a lot of people do simulations and they try to replicate it, but they're still doing their 5 sessions a week. They're still under stress. They're still not fully recovered. So it's never going to be an accurate thing. So always, it doesn't mean you can't train hard. You can't train very hard, but we want to obviously train in ways that are still progression-based, that are still show a level of repeatability within that session, so that you can either repeat in that session or you can repeat efforts as weeks go on. All right. So in that last 12 weeks, right, training program and structures need now to be really pushing you. And now we're going to start to be a little bit, we're still sustainable in that 3-month block, but you're not going to be able to sustain that level of training intensity for 12 months, right? So we can start to see there that we're really building to that race day to complete the race. Now, that's why, these HYROX ready programs that we put together in that 12-week is a very crucial time. But if people haven't done the base stuff before it, then what we find is the first time through, they're gonna get a great result still, but it's not until we can put them through a proper base building phase, or get a good 6 months of training with those individuals, that we see people then go from a good result to a fantastic result. So that's, this is context, and why people can't just get the world's best result in 12 weeks, because the body just can't adapt that quick. That is the reality. So one thing I always stress with people too is, if it is your first HYROX and you are, training for it, and it's only 12 weeks out or even less than that, and you sign up, the great news about it is that if you do love it and you do go again, the first one is so much fun. And I think we spoke about this on a different podcast, that you just got to have an expectation that you're not going to go out and set a world record, right? And if you do, it's because you trained very hard in your previous, sports or goals, right, that have allowed you to display that fitness. But if all this is quite new to you, right, I think you should really just go out there expecting to have fun, do your best, still perform, still push yourself, still challenge yourself, but understand that this is probably going to be your worst result yet, because once you come out of it and go, okay, now I got work to do, and I can, think a bit more long-term, and I can go through a really good training structure, then you're going to get an incredible result. And this is what we're getting to now. So for those people, now you've done HYROX, you've built your way to HYROX, you've smashed training, you've pushed yourself to the limit, you did HYROX, right? Now this is where the problems start to unfold, right? So after that is you need to recover, right? We need a week, 2 weeks, potentially to fully let the body recover. Now, if you're someone that's like me as well, who gets very excited, you're going to go, when's the next HYROX? I want to do that. Now, let's just say it's 6 weeks away. I think on most calendars, they're kind of around 6 weeks-ish away if it's in that local area that you can get to quite easily. Now, if it takes you at least a week, all right, let's be very, modest here. It takes you a week to recover. Now, you've only got 5 weeks of training. Now, you can't be training fully intense up until the week. Again, travel, you got to taper a little bit. So let's call it a week, right, where it's not a normal training schedule. So you've only got 4 weeks in between. Now, this is also, and this highlights why we're talking about this is because in 4 weeks of solo training, there are some people I know that like literally want to go 10 minutes quicker, right? And not because they need to fix a mistake they made, just they think they can go 10 minutes faster. And in 4 weeks of training, again, it's going to be very marginal. It's going to be very minimal gains, right? That you can improve. And this is the mistake people make, is then they go out of HYROX, and then they train super hard in between those 2 races. Like, it's like there is no recovery, there is no rest. They then try push even harder, and they can do that to a degree because they're so motivated to do so, right? But what is actually happening is the body is still under stress, still under extreme amounts of load from the race. It's not recovering fully. And even though your efforts feel really hard and like you're training hard and you're still displaying numbers, what's actually happening is your performance most likely is diminishing and you don't realize it. Then you get to the race day, right? And you've trained as hard as you could again. You're feeling confident because you've just smashed yourself. So you haven't not done the hard work. You've done the hard work, but then you get to the race, and I've seen it. People get slower times, right? I've seen people get just minimal times, right? This was me, right? When I went from Melbourne to Brisbane, right? So a lot of what I'm saying here is I had a 6-week time frame. I'm like, I got to do more, right? Thinking that I could just, manage it so perfectly. And I did push myself. I did everything I just explained then. And we got like a minute quicker, right? So it was quicker, right? But it was so small. So what I learned, and from my experiences and from other people's experiences, and, this just goes back to what I know as a coach and what I know just from the textbooks, right? Because there's a reason why all this science works, because it does work, is in between these phases. And this is what we do now. Like, we're racing now from Melbourne, we're going to New Zealand, and our whole crew that we train and we were training with, we came out of Melbourne, we rested and we recovered number 1. And then what we did is we didn't try to pick up or do anything new or special. We just got back to just, routine and maintenance, right? And this is the important thing here, is you should really understand that if you're in between races, you just need to maintain your training structure. You don't need to add more. You don't need to push harder. You don't need to do anything. You just need to make sure that the body is working well, and you will still make improvements. You will still make improvements because you're just getting more volume in again. You're getting more training sessions in again. You have more opportunities to refine, get a little bit better. But the expectation there is you're not going to go from one race and then in 6 weeks time, be, 1 minute quicker on your runs per run and so forth. So this is where some people have, but this is how some people should be planning their HYROX season, right? Is they should go, I'm going to do this event, this event, this event. Now, physical performance is only one way to improve at HYROX. Then you have experience. So if you go race to race, you're going to get more experience on the day, prepping for the day, transitions, not being so nervous on the race day. So these things as well are going to make substantial increases in your performance as well. So never discount that. Don't always think that the effort just needs to go into your physical performance, because you are actually going to get better at competing along your journey as well. So that's why, a couple of the girls that we coach, they're getting ready for world championships, and we're trying to get them to do as many races as they can, not because we need to, get them racing and that intensity, but we just need to keep exposing them to the events. But what their training is doing, right, because the championships are in mid-year, right, is their training is not one of we're getting them race prepped. The race is in end of June, right? So they're just in a steady training block, but we're just adding races in there, if that sort of makes sense as well. So just because there's a race there does not mean that we then push extremely hard or do something that's going to damage actual progress, right? So again, this is a big thing. So even like I mentioned, I'm going to start to put together a specific program for people in between races. And this program is going to be designed around not having progressional overload where we increase volume and we increase intensities over a period of time. Is we just maintain efforts all the way through. But what can improve is people's performance, like their run pace, or the weights they use, or how quick they did rounds, right? But we're not there, and we're not going to keep loading their body. So if we understand this, that in between racing is maintenance, then okay, once we've gone past now the race to race, now I've got 6 months to train. I've got 9 months to train, right? And this is what this is the highlight. Then you have to go back to a build phase. We call it it's like your off season, right? You've got to go back into a build phase. You can't just go back into a intense phase. And when you build, right, so you've done your last build. Now, the great thing is when you go into your next build phase, you're building on top of what you've already got, which is great. So now, and this is what I think a lot of people sort of miss, and they really should do, is they need to then go think long term and go, okay, well, yeah, my next goal is now 9 months away, right? So I got to start doing the things that are needed for me to do right now, which is get back to some endurance, right? And we know HYROX is a running race, but endurance does not mean running. Maybe I'm just going to do lots of cycling, right? I'm going to do lots of rowing or something, because we need to work on endurance. We don't need to work specifically on running. Now, if you can keep running, right, obviously that's amazing. It's going to improve your running, keep your body used to loading and all that kind of stuff. We don't want to cut running out altogether, but can you go for that weekend bike ride instead of a run and still run during the week? Absolutely, because you're still going to get that same endurance benefit. And then you can just get back to the gym and lift some weights, right? And I notice so many people in this HYROX space, we love HYROX, but we love functional fitness. We love fitness, right? We love just going to the gym and lifting some weights. We love going for a run. We don't always necessarily love smashing ourselves doing HYROX. So I think this is also a really great time to just get back to your love of fitness, right? Get back to working on these areas, build some strength. Like, let's increase that back squat. Let's just increase your distance on your run. Make runs feel good again. Slow the pace down. Have a conversation with friends. Join a run club, right? Get back to these roots. Start building your base. And then, like I just said all the way before, you're going to then start to then, as you get closer to your event, then you go into the next phase. You hit that 12, you hit that 6 months out, boom. Now we're going back into volume and capacity improvement. 3 months out now, boom, I'm in my HYROX ready sort of phase now, where I'm going to start building very specifically for the race and the intensities and the performance. Then I got the race, then I'm in season. I might have 1 or 2 or 3 races that I'm going to do, which is a very maintenance kind of structure, right? It's all about just making sure the body is in the best position possible to perform. And then boom, I'm going to go back into off season, go back to a build phase. If you do this for, let's call it like 2 or 3 years. And that's why, when we see athletes that are at the top of their game, like some of these guys that are, now right at the top and winning, that have only started winning really in the last, year or so. They've been doing it since 2017, specifically HYROX, but obviously still been runners and, doing functional type fitness well before that. So it takes years for sometimes people to get to where they want to get to. So that's kind of like the long-term vision. So if we zone out and go, geez, this thing really could take me years to get good at it. So if you're starting your journey, you're 12 weeks out, first time ever, you know what I mean? It's like you can't stand a chance to the version of you who's got 3 years under your belt, right? You just can't stand a chance if you do it right. But if you set the wrong expectations, if you go about it the wrong way, you will start to not understand what you need to be doing at what time. And then you start to teach yourself and create this belief system that this is what HYROX training is. It's always this hard, intense thing. And, it's not always. This reminds me a lot of like the CrossFit days. If there's any CrossFitters listening to this, you will probably understand this. Is CrossFit, also got known for just intensity. But it wasn't until some of the athletes realized, and a lot of them do now, which is really great because, again, they've just done it for such a long time, is they have to have like on and off seasons. Like Tia Toomey is a great example. She literally did HYROX in her off season for CrossFit, which is crazy. But they have times where they got to work on areas of their fitness, so then they can bring it into the season to actually then display those things. So if you just teach yourself, and this is what a lot of CrossFitters have done, is they only know one way to do CrossFit. It's hard, right? And that's why they're either doing it or they're not doing it. And we even see CrossFitters coming in the HYROX. They're just going back to their old belief systems. Boom, I'm going to train morning. I'm going to train the afternoon. I'm going to train 5-6 days a week. I'm going to smash myself, because to them, that's how progress was made initially, right? Initially, it was made like that. That just became a belief system, but that belief system doesn't work long-term. Hence why we see in CrossFit, a lot of CrossFitters, finish up and go into other sports 3 years down the track, or get injured, or various things. This is like not just a CrossFit thing. This goes with a lot of sports, like cycling and running. Like these guys are, even crazier, right? How many times these guys need to slow down, but they don't. They get addicted. We get addicted to the dopamine rush, right? This is just sports and fitness in general. So, but yes. So hopefully this shines a light now on what you need to be doing. So if you are that brand new beginner, okay, you got to understand, where am I? If you got 6 months out, right, you're in a great position. And the great news is you don't have to kill yourself now, but all that hard work will come. If you're less than 12 weeks out from your event, you got to start to pick up the intensity. This is the time to do so. But when we do the race, right, then we got to slow it down, and then you put back on the board the things that you now need to work on, and you put them into a long-term plan. If you're in between races, right, this is the big thing for both of you, beginner and advanced people, right? It's like maintenance. Keep your body fresh. Keep your body in working well, right? Recover it, get it back into shape, get back to your normal training routine. Don't add more to it. If you need to focus on something like, I need to focus more on running, then you focus more on running, but you don't just add more running, right? You just focus on it. Maybe you swap some strength for the running. Okay. You got to keep that. That's proven to going to get you the best result. And then once it's all done and the season's sort of done for us, or we've got space in between races again, then get back to a build phase, everybody. All right, everyone. If you're still listening to this point, well done, right? Means you care a lot about your HYROX, care a lot about your fitness. And obviously this is something that maybe you were thinking, and it's very easy out there as well for people to get a little bit unsure, because they want to train hard and they want to do their best, but sometimes you got to trust the process, right? And this is pure definition of trust the process. We say here, commit to the process. And once you commit to it, guarantee the results come at the end of it. There's no secret there. Everybody, thank you for listening. Until the next episode, I will see you then. Other than that, keep training hard, right? But sustainable. And I'll see you at